Hey everyone, Tony here from the ClassicLeague.com Gaming and Electronic Podcast. I want to welcome you back for this series. It's our RPG series called Max HP, and I'm joined here with my good friend Shintai. How you doing, Shintai?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Awesome. Well, Shintai and I have decided, now that he has an Xbox 360, to play some...
Woot.
Woot, yes. Play some Xbox 360 exclusive RPGs. And so there's a couple we have on our list. But we decided to start with a couple older ones. The first one is Infinite Undiscovery, and then we'll also be rotating, doing Max HP for Lost Odyssey as well. So expect some good episodes over the next couple months because these are pretty big games, and we'll be working through them. But this week in Max HP, we have the first episode of Infinite Undiscovery, and we'll be covering just kind of some of the basic gameplay mechanics and some of the some of the characters and things like that. We've played through about the first couple hours of the game, and we're kind of getting our feet wet in the story. So, Shintai, why don't you tell us a little bit about the story?
Well, the story starts off with our protagonist in jail, and we don't really know much about him. It's just starting off, boom, he's incarcerated. I'm not really sure why. And apparently, though, while he's talking to the guard, some hot chick comes out of nowhere and beats up the guard, and then she mistakes the main character as this revolutionary figure called Sigmund, and she thinks he looks just like him, and she mistakes him for him, and then when she realizes, oh wait, you're not him, she's like, oh well, whatever, I'll get you out of here anyways. And he, for some reason, is like, I don't feel like it.
Yeah, he's really strange, for sure, just at least to start. So I think they're kind of setting it up for some character development, but his name is Capel, right? Is that how you say it? Yeah. And Aya is the girl who rescues him. And so, yeah, he's very... It's funny that he's in prison because he seems like he wouldn't harm a fly, if that makes sense.
Even when he's forced to retaliate, he's just kind of like, oh man, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, very passive, and especially in the beginning. So it's kind of set up around this idea that we understand, I guess there's a moon or some sort of celestial body in the moon or something giving life to their planet, and someone has chained the moon to the planet.
Yeah.
If I've read into that right. So there's this really cool cinematic once they break out of prison, and that kind of explains all of that. But yeah, so the moon is chained to the earth, and I think Sigmund is like the character who can break the chains, right?
I believe so. Unless we misunderstood something, because the story does seem to be a bit complex from what I can see. I think the basic story is probably simple, but there's a lot of interesting themes around it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And so what did you think about the way that they introduced the rest of the characters? So, I don't know, I guess I'm expecting in an RPG they kind of slowly introduce characters throughout the game, but this game seems to just lay on the characters. As soon as you get out of prison, you're just introduced to like 5 or 6 other characters right away.
Well, in most RPGs that I've played, it is exactly as you described. They do sort of just introduce characters as you play through the game. It's like, oh, you start off with a few characters, and then later on it's like, oh, here's a new person. He has his reasons to want to fight against whatever you're fighting against, and then they join the group. And that's usually how it goes. And yeah, in this game, there was a one point I was just thinking to myself, oh my god, character overload. There were just like a bunch of characters just being introduced all at once. And it was kind of weird. But the characters themselves actually did seem interesting because they all had like their own distinct personalities. And I think it would have been better if they did it a more traditional way rather than just, here's a bunch of characters. But, the characters themselves do seem like they're interesting, and it does seem like the relationships are going to develop, because a lot of the characters that you meet in the beginning kind of look at the main character as cowardly, and they don't really think that he's worth having as part of the resistance, except for Sigmund himself.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. Like Sigmund was pretty cool. Like when you first see him, he kicks some ass, and I'm guessing that the main character may take his place or something since they look very similar.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I assume is going to happen. And I think that would be interesting to kind of like force the other characters to accept this character as an authority figure, or maybe it'll be that they've developed to the point where they already accept him. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. And one of the things I did like that they kind of recovered from a character overload in the fact that most of the characters you're introduced to, they go off with Sigmund at the beginning of the game once you know, kind of get out of prison. And you're left with, I mean, the main characters in our part so far have been Aya and then the two kids, Rico and Ruka, or Rucha, however you say it. They're kind of annoying. But so maybe they're introducing all the characters to us first, and then we'll slowly get to integrate and get to know those characters more as they develop throughout the game. So it was kind of cool that they did localize them in the sense that we only had to focus on a few characters after being introduced to everyone for the actual gameplay. So be interesting to see how it goes. So so far we've kind of broken out of prison. We've Aya was sick. We've kind of rescued her and then built a relationship with Rico and Rucha, and now we're kind of heading to a castle. So it's given us plenty of time to mess with the battle system at all. How would you classify this game, and what do you think of the battle system so far?
I'd say it's an action RPG for sure, because you can run around and you can hit enemies and do combos and stuff. But behind that, you can also level up, and as you level up, you learn different skills that you can use during battle. And those skills can actually, as you use them more, level up individually. So if you favor certain skills, then you'll be able to perform them better during combat. And I'd also say it's a bit of an adventure game as well, since the areas that you explore in the game are pretty expansive. They're pretty big areas, and I think that pretty much says it all. It's an action adventure RPG.
Yeah, I agree, and it's interesting in the combat how they actually have you, for some reason, and I don't know if I like it yet, but they have you sheath your sword, and then you actually have to hit a physical button to unsheath your sword and pull it out and do some attacks, and then so that's kind of interesting, and I'm trying to decide if I really like that part or not yet.
Well, I understand why they did it, because the way it works is when you have your sword sheath, you can move around and run faster, as opposed to when you have it out, then you walk a little bit slower. So it makes you a little more conscious about, well, why do I still have my sword out after battle? I should put this away so I can run faster.
Yeah.
And I guess it also works well when you're about to like approach an enemy. You can, while you unsheath your sword, you can also attack the enemy, and you can get a preemptive strike as well. So I mean, it does have, there isn't just there for no reason. There are different pros and cons to having the sword out or sheath, but I also understand why it could, why you would not like it, because it is a little bit strange, since we're just if you play games like God of War or something like that, or even other action RPGs, because they typically don't do this. Usually it's just you go into battle, you hit things, you're done, and that's it.
Yeah. It does add an interesting piece, and I noticed even one of the cool things you can kind of get an early attack is if you're running towards an enemy and you unsheath your sword right as you're approaching them, it'll go ahead and put a slice into them, which is pretty cool. I just kind of picked up on that today, actually. So
yeah, you also get a few bonuses when you do that. I think you're more experience.
And probably the last gameplay element, as far as battle's concerned, is the flute. And so our main character, the protagonist, Capel, is actually is a flute player by trade, which is kind of funny. But he actually gains some skills playing his flute. So during battle, and we haven't used this much yet, but I'm sure that we'll be using it really soon. You can gain different skills or melodies, I guess, for your flute. And so you can make the enemy lose magic power or magic points during battle if you use the flute that way or whatever. So all sorts of things I'm sure you're going to be able to do with that. So that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah. Um, one of the flute abilities that you get through the story is you're able to see things that when you play it, like if there's like a hidden treasure chest or something, it will appear. And I think that's kind of cool. Adds a little more variety, and when gives you something else to do while you're exploring the world. It's like, oh, maybe there's something hidden here. You can play the flute. It's like, I got some gold or something, or maybe a new piece of equipment.
Definitely. So, well, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for the first part. Kind of a just an introduction to the game, and I'm sure we'll get more in depth as we go on. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about the first part of Infinite Undiscovery?
There was one part of the game where we kind of got stuck in.
Yeah.
I think everything else about the game has been very positive. And I think this is really the only negative so far, in that the game isn't entirely clear about what it wanted us to do next. And we thought that we had to go into the cave and get certain items and then bring it back to this door. And that's not what we had to do. We had to do something entirely different. And it wasn't very clear about that, which is a bit annoying since everything else about the game is really good. So
it'll be interesting since that happened already in the first couple hours, if that happens more, because I mean, you're really experienced with RPGs and especially JRPGs, and I've played quite a few in my life as well, so it was interesting how we both got stuck in the first couple hours. I was really surprised by that. So hopefully there's not tons of points like that in the game, but anyways.
Yeah, hopefully not, but you can never be too sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the first episode of Max HP for Infinite Undiscovery. This game was developed by Tri-Ace and published by Square Enix, so check it out. It is exclusive for the Xbox 360, and I hope you'll join us for episode 2. For Classic Leap, this is Tony and Shintai signing off.